I grew up in a time where people were always looking backward, like, oh my God, I'm 50 years old. 50 years have gone by. But I think this new reinvention generation is saying, oh my God, I've got 50 years more to go.
Actress and activist Marlo Thomas today on Now I've Heard Everything. I'm Buell Thompson. During her decades-long career as an actress, an entertainer, a writer, and an activist, Marlo Thomas has been all about empowerment, starting with empowering girls and young women with her starring role as aspiring actress Anne Marie in the 60s TV series That Girl. Now, that TV show was actually one of the very first to feature a young woman, a single woman, living by and supporting herself. That, of course, was just one of the dozens of professional roles that Marlo Thomas has played over the years. She's also a best-selling writer. You may own a copy of one of her books, Free to Be, You and Me. And she's also embraced a number of feminist causes over the years, working alongside luminaries like Gloria Steinem. Now, in 2014, Marlo Thomas turned her attention with a new book to the older woman. In particular, the older woman who is reinventing herself, oftentimes after a life-altering moment. And she called that book, It Ain't Over Till It's Over. And she and I met one afternoon in Baltimore to talk about it. In just a moment, our conversation.
Come back with us now as we relive a little piece of our cultural history on Now I've Heard Everything. This interview is from Bill Thompson's 30-year archive. Enjoy.
So here now from 2014, Marlo Thomas.
I travel a lot raising money for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And everywhere I go, I meet women who really feel that they're stuck. They're for all kinds of reasons. I mean, the economy has laid a lot of people off, and so that's one reason to feel stuck, because what are you going to do next? Or there's the kind of woman that really had a terrific dream of raising a family, and now the daughter has a driver's license and the son's off to college and she's out of a job pretty much. And she's 43 years old and looking around and saying, what happened? My dream ran out on me. Or there's a divorce, loss of a husband through death, and loss of a job and all these things. And the other thing that there is also that I found interesting is that there are women who took jobs, just like men do, to make a living, to put food on the table or to supplement the family income. But that was then, and now she's wondering, can I go back and do the thing I really wanted to do? Is it too late? And I think what I found in most of the women, and which is why I called it Ain't Over Till It's Over, is that a lot of women felt that it's just too late. I didn't get to do it. And there's nothing worse than living with regret, And so I thought, well, I have to prove to women everywhere that these women did do it. They did change their lives. But it's not just a collection of terrific women and, wow, isn't that great what they did. It really is a sort of a manual and a map for how you can do it, how you can change your life, how you can have the dream you want to have. And why not?
I watched some of your webcasts last night.
Oh, yes.
And I was struck by the fact that the 2 or 3 of the questions were coming from women in their 20s. And I thought, my gosh, when I was in my 20s, I was just barely inventing myself, let alone reinventing myself. Is there anything to be discouraged about by women in their 20s thinking about reinvention?
Discouraged? I think it's very encouraging. Well, because, maybe they're at a fork in the road. Reinvention doesn't mean a complete overhaul. It may just mean, I was wrong about what I started to do. I think I really want to do this.
I picked the wrong major?
Yeah, exactly. Or the wrong guy, or the wrong city, or my dad told me to do this kind of a job. A lot of the women that I met said that their parents said, no, don't go do that. That's too pie in the sky. You don't want to be an artist. Artists can't make money. You don't want to be a writer. Writers can't make money. So instead they would take something else, become a graphic artist, or an insurance person, or something in which work in the bank industry. They didn't know then that the banks were going to go to hell, but so there's something that looked more solid, and there's wisdom in that. There just isn't life in it, so people get the life sucked right out of them.
But coming back to something you said a moment ago, a lot of women took jobs because they needed to make a living. Right. A lot of them may now, again, to use your word you so often, stuck. They may feel stuck that they have a dream. They have something. They know they could do it.
Yes.
But you got to pay the electric bill. You got to pay the mortgage. You got to pay the car payment.
But you can also, some of the women in the book did all kinds of interesting things. They left their apartments, gave up their apartments, moved in with a friend, slept on a couch, sold their clothes on eBay in order to make enough money to rent a little space so that they could have a studio or whatever it is that they wanted to do. Or women that wanted to go back to school and learn a skill. One woman wanted to run a restaurant, but she couldn't do that without some culinary skills and without some management skills, so she decided to invest in her education. So there are a lot of ways to get what you want. Many of the women in the book were down and out, completely without any money. And they mortgaged their houses, they borrowed on their retirement fund. None of these things am I saying you should all do all these things, but you will do one of them if you really want to get the dream that you want to have. I grew up in a time where people were always looking backward, like, oh my God, I'm 50 years old. 50 years have gone by, 40 years have gone by. But I think this new reinvention generation is saying, oh my God, I've got 50 years more to go. I have 40 more years to go. It's forward thinking rather than backward thinking. That's a huge shift, I think.
There's a wonderful serendipity to many of these stories. A woman who didn't realize she could paint until she painted a mural on her living room wall. A woman who finds out that a guy's about to throw out a whole boatload of mannequins, and it's almost like some of these women stumbled into what their dream was.
Well, because they knew they didn't have one. They knew they were unhappy. They knew they were stuck in a dead-end job, or else they didn't have a job at all. They knew they were broke. They knew they couldn't pay their bills. They knew a lot of things. But for whatever reason, something came to them in that serendipitous way, like the mannequins. Woman read about this guy unloading all these mannequins, and she thought, if I owned all these mannequins, I bet I could have a business with mannequins. One of the other things that I thought was inspiring to me is I love what I do. I love being an actress. I love communicating with my website and communicating through my books and things. That's really what I love to do. So I'm very fortunate that I get to do what I love to do and get paid to do it and make a living and take care of myself, my family, and so forth.
Is reinvention a different process for women than it is for men?
Well, I think the thing that men have an advantage about is they don't usually get out of the job market. So they have a ladder of a career. They build through the years. They may not get to the top of where they want to go. They may have a dream they never realized. There's all kinds of things that men go through as well. I don't think just women don't realize their dreams. I think a lot of men live in a regret that they didn't get to go after what they wanted because they had children and a wife and a mortgage and all kinds of things. But women have a particular different situation, and that is that they pull out of the job market maybe for 12, 13, 14 years. Very hard to get back in. And the society isn't that open to women who are over 40. One woman that I spoke to said she couldn't even get to be the reception at a beauty parlor. They wanted somebody in their 20s. So if you want somebody in their 20s and 30s as the receptionist in a beauty parlor or the hostess at the restaurant, and those aren't even high-skilled jobs, then, we're in trouble. And also in the tech world, the tech companies want the 20-somethings because they're natives of tech, and older people aren't. My husband's 9-year-old grandson, takes our printer and our computer apart, puts it back together, while we just stand there trying to figure out, how to print, So, they are natives of this new land. And people who are hiring know that if they hire a 25-year-old or even a 13-year-old, they're going to get better than a 40 or 50-year-old.
I'm wondering if that fact keeps a lot of women who could otherwise be very successful from even taking the first step.
I think so. I think you're right. I think the fear of the rejection and the fear of the failure holds a lot of people back. You have to really kind of get in touch with time. You're here, you've got this amount of time. If you're 60, you have 30 years left, hopefully. My grandmother lived to be 95. You have a lot of years left. So you have to think of it in terms of what is it how do you want to spend the rest of your life? And 30 years is a long time. And if you're 50, it could be 40 years. If you're 45, it's, and a lot of these women that I met were thinking, well, what can I do? How do I start? Oh, I know what I wanted to tell you. I was telling you how much I love my work, and that one of the things, and I think it's very lucky to love what you do, make a living at it. And some of the women in the book one woman lost her husband suddenly, and she had 3 little kids, and no way to make a living. She didn't know what she was going to do, how she was going to take care of herself. And she liked to make jewelry. And she made jewelry all the time for her friends, and they loved it. So one of her friends said, "Oh, why don't you start selling the jewelry?" She said, "Really? Would anybody buy it?" She says, "Well, we love it. We all wear them. They're great." So she started making jewelry and selling it in little boutiques around her town. And now she has a business of making jewelry, and it's something she loves to do. It's something she knows how to do. And what's also interesting about this day and age is you don't need a store. You can sell it online. So even the kind of money it took to own a store or rent a space in a store may not even be necessary for a while. You can make do online. And you can also make do in somebody else's store. And I think that's an important thing to understand, that if you make cupcakes or caramels and different things that the women in the book made to begin, they took them to their local bakeries, and then they sold their crackers and their cookies and so forth, just to start, somewhere.
After this short break, Marlo Thomas explains why you have to think big but work small.
AI is not just for 22-year-old coders. A lot of us older adults are drawing on our life experience to find unique and creative ways to use AI, at home or at work. Got an AI success story you'd like to share? Tap the link below to visit our YouTube channel, AI After 40, and let's keep learning together.
Now back to my 2014 conversation with Marlo Thomas. Once you've reinvented once, is the second one easier? If you get tired of cupcakes or jewelry and you want to become a skydiving instructor, is it easier the second time?
I think so. I think because you can do it. Once you realize that you're one of your own resources, I think a lot of people forget that. It has to come from you. One of the things that I learned from writing the book and meeting these people, actually, when I reread the book after I put it down and turned it in, and now I was doing other things, I was about to go out on a tour and talk about the book, I read it again just to get the feel of it, and I thought, here's what I'm learning, is that you can think big, but you have to work small. You can't just say, okay, I want to be the editor of the newspaper. I mean, you have to work all the way up. And some people get discouraged if they don't get what they want in the first year. And I have a friend in California who created something for mothers and grandmothers. I don't want to say what it is, but it's something to take care of children. And it's a wonderful idea, and she took it to QVC, and they turned it down. And she was devastated. I said, QVC is the top of the mountain, for God's sake. How about starting at Gymboree or The Gap or someplace small, which isn't so small, or even a drugstore or even a friend's store or wherever, and little by little, you'll build an audience, you'll go online, you could go viral, all kinds of things can happen. But to be discouraged that the top of the mountain doesn't want you, that is just really enough to stop people. They think too big instead of starting small.
You've also got stories in here of women who were affected by a tragedy of one kind or another. You mentioned a moment ago a woman who'd lost her husband, but you got a woman who lost her brother in 9/11. Right. You got things of divorce, illness, death, all around.
Also abusiveness. One woman was married to an abusive husband who beat her up, and she ran out. Finally, had the courage to run out. And what does a woman do what does she take when she runs out of her house from a destructive marriage? Her kids, nothing else. Her kids and what they have on their backs. What I thought was fascinating is that she ran for cover and she went to a friend and she got away from him, which took a lot of courage. But another woman in the book had a friend who was murdered by her husband, and she began a clothing company. She was on the webcast last night. And she and her husband were starting this clothing company, and when her friend was murdered by her husband, she then decided that she'd make some of the clothing company be for charitable clothing and take it to women who were in these domestic abusive centers to help them with their children to get some clothes on their backs. And also she encouraged them to come and work for her so that they could, because most women do learn to sew at some point in their lives, and so some of them came and helped her to sewing things and putting things together for themselves and for other women, so it empowered them in many ways. But I thought that was so exciting that a woman saw a need like that and said, okay, I can do something in my dress company which could help these women who run out with their clothes on their back. And another woman, 2 kids, went to the mailbox one day and found a letter from a woman with some photographs that her husband was cheating on her. And she just was devastated. And she said, I just knew then I could not live as a victim. I wouldn't do it. And so she left him and had to start all over. She was a mom of 2 kids. She was keeping house. She was, doing the running to the hockey games and the school picnics and all the things that moms do. And she had to start over and get a job and go back to school, get a skill. She had to start completely over. And she had to learn to trust again so that she could love again. I mean, so many things happen in a situation like that. You lose a lot of who you are.
Why shouldn't a woman listen if somebody tells her, you just got to face facts?
Oh, you've read my book. It is my favorite saying. Ruth Gordon, who was a wonderful actress and a writer, I read that she once said that never face the facts, you'll never get out of bed in the morning. And I really believe that to be true. Because why should you be different than the other zillion people who can't go forward? And the point is that if you don't face the facts, you will be the person that doesn't fall back. Don't face the facts. Make your own facts. All the polls, all the statistics for marriage and for everything we want in life, the statistics are against us. But that doesn't stop us from trying. I mean, you've been married twice. I've been married once. I'm my husband's second wife. He tried again, and I'm awfully glad. But, I mean, you have to, say, okay, then it will be different. I will do better.
Marlo Thomas is 88 now. She is National Outreach Director for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Now, you can get your copy of It Ain't Over Till It's Over by Marlo Thomas by tapping the link in our show notes, by clicking the link in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube, or by going to our website, heardeverything.com. We may earn an Amazon commission if you make a purchase. HeardEverything.com is where you can also find my 1996 conversation with the founder of Mrs. Fields Cookies, Debbie Fields.
People seem to think that I'm really this great chef, and I'm not. I love to bake. My cooking skills are, I'm like this mad scientist in the kitchen, always trying to experiment, coming up with something new.
And my 1996 conversation with mail-order catalog pioneer Lillian Vernon.
The one thing women really want, when I speak to women, they don't want to make millions of dollars. They really don't. They want a happy life. They want to have a family. They want to have relationships, whether it's with children, with marriage, whatever it is. They want another person in their life. And they really want to learn how to give back.
And of course, we post new episodes of Now I've Heard Everything every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you can find us wherever you find podcasts. Thank you so much for listening. Next time on Now I've Heard Everything, it's the 80th anniversary of the day the U.S. dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima, Japan. So we'll revisit my 1991 conversation with a former U.S. intelligence official who, during the war, could have stopped that bombing. My conversation with Martin Quigley.
As early as the middle of May of 1945, the Japanese knew they had lost the war and they wanted to make peace. They tried to make peace through Moscow.
That's next time on Now I've Heard Everything. I'm Bill Thompson.